This question is about intuition, gut instinct versus ego fears or fears of the human-centered mind. Welcome to our Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons series. In each episode, we answer your questions, reveal the powerful life lesson, and offer you lots of practical tips and advice to help you live in balance, harmony, and flow. The question is, do you have any tips on how I can decipher the difference between my instincts or gut feeling about something, if I believe it's wrong, versus an insecurity or a fear based on a reaction to something I or my inner child has imagined or perceived as wrong? So what is the difference between my authentic instincts, my intuition, and a kind of niggling fear or doubt that's presented by my outer balance, human-centered mind, or my inner child?
What a great question. Really good question. And why I'm smiling is because, a long time ago, over 20 years ago, perhaps even longer, I asked this to a Taoist monk. So it just made me smile because I remember his answer. So I'm going to give you a translation of his answer. The human-centered mind, the ego or the inner child, whatever you want to call it, when that's talking to you, so this is what he says, the human-centered mind shouts at you from outside in. Your Shen, your spirit, comes from inside out. Mm-hmm. So the mind shouts at you, tells you what to do. The Shen comes from within you, and it's more like coming from within out. And I always thought that was such a simple explanation. So when you get that gut feeling and it wells up inside of you and you just know it's right, that's your gut feeling. When you get that thing on your shoulder going, do this and look at what's going to happen and they're going to say and I know what he's going to say and she's going to say and they're going to say, and you go on and on. This is the human-centered mind.
Or the inner child.
Or the inner child, or the ego, whatever label you want to put on it. The only reason why I don't like using the ego label is because it's so misconstrued through lots of practices. So that's why I prefer the human-centered mind or the inner child. So if it's talking at you, if it's giving you problems, if it's always throwing barriers up, if it's saying, oh yes, but this, oh yes, but that, oh this could happen, oh I know what she's thinking. So here's another quick tip. We call it in our model, the Wu Wei process is CCJ. If you hear yourself criticizing yourself or other people, if you hear yourself comparing yourself, be honest, do you compare yourself? Oh, look at them. Oh, they're more happy than me. They got more money than me. Look at this. Look at their job. They're doing more success. They find that easier. I don't. If you're doing comparing, this is the human-centered mind. Being judgmental. Definitely the human-centered mind. Mm-hmm. Now, let me just talk for a moment on that. There's a big difference between making judgments and being judgmental. Making judgments is you've got the evidence there and you now make an authentic, correct judgment. Being judgmental is saying, oh, well, look at him, look at her. I know what she's thinking. They always think the same. This is what's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. And you're being judgmental. You're projecting on and you are putting your own model on reality instead of allowing reality to come and then dealing with reality. So that's what the human-centered mind will do. The Shen, your spirit, your gut instinct will not do that. The gut instinct will guide you gently, telling you which way to go.
And I mean, I think this idea of is the self-talk, comparing, criticizing, being judgmental, I really do think for me that's a very powerful filtering system, like a first stage filtering system to know whether this is my authentic Shen voice speaking to me or whether it's just my inner child being fearful, being over emotional, being over anxious, all those red light feelings. So that's a good filtering system. I guess a lot of people would ask, David, you say quite a lot of the time, red light feelings indicate we are out of balance.
Yes.
If I'm presented with a situation which is giving me red light feelings, does that mean that it's my human-centered mind or my inner child kind of misguiding me? Or is actually the red light feeling coming from something my Shen is warning me about that I authentically need to address?
So the red light feeling, that's why I prefer to call it a red light, not anxiety, not depression, not panic attack, whatever you want to call it. I prefer to call it a red light feeling because it's telling you that you're out of balance. Now, let me answer Alex's question. But before we get there, for those of you who are new to the model, so what you do is you separate the feeling from the thought or the belief that's created it. Okay. Remember that feeling, I know this is hard for you to swallow, is actually doing you a great service. Just take that in for a moment. Anxiety is actually helping you. Anxiety is positive. Call it red light. It's like a fire alarm. It's like a smoke alarm. Isn't a smoke alarm a good idea? Because it tells you there's a fire. So it's not a bad idea. You don't disconnect your smoke alarms. And it's the same with your emotional feelings. So first of all, acknowledge your feelings. Again, I'm going to emphasize. Please do not write in and saying, oh, you keep on saying deny my feelings. I am not saying deny your feelings. I am saying interpret your feelings. Right. Separate your feelings now. Come to what is the thought that's created those feelings. And then ask yourself the golden thread. Why? Why do I believe that? Why do I think that? Why? And then you'll come down to the life lesson. This is where there's a separation. Your Shen knows what you should be doing. Mm-hmm. Your human-centered mind wants to protect you and keep you safe and lock you into a prison.
Kind of like
and there's the tug of war. That's what's creating the red light. You know, I always, if I remember, I work with my clients and we go through an hour or a 2-hour session. I just did it yesterday from somebody as in the States. We did a 2-hour session, really intense, really working hard. And she said, oh, David, thank you. You know, that's I forget, like that's put on the lights. That's enlightened me. I said, can you tell me one thing? What have I told you that you didn't already know? And she said, nothing. You already know the right way, but the mind is taking over and then you say, well, it's easier, it's familiar, let's go down this way. And I say, well, it doesn't work. And you go, yes, I know it doesn't work, but it's easier. Yeah. It's not easier. Yeah.
So what you're saying is when we get the uncomfortable or painful red light feeling, when we're considering a situation, a life choice, a person, you know, is this person okay? Is this person trustworthy? Is this the right next choice for me, my career, my family, whatever it is, where we're trying to tap into our gut feeling, our Shen guidance, our spirit guidance, whatever label you want to give it. If we're getting a red light feeling, first of all, check no CCJ, then check what is the thought behind the feeling to make sure it's not being motivated, it's not coming from the inner child fears or the human-centered mind trying to protect you. Once we get quiet with ourselves in that way, and almost like do that as almost like a quiet meditation, like careful consideration of the transformation of the feelings to the thoughts, that can become like a meditation. Once we calm our mind down, which might be racing on full blast, that quietness, that stillness that you create within you, that allows the quieter Shen voice, that intuition, that spirit voice to be heard. Because, as you say, the Shen voice is always there. The Shen is there to guide you. You're never not without it. It never walks off and leaves you. It's always there. It's just, as you say, the yang nature of the human-centered mind out of balance overpowers it. It's very loud and very vocal. And we can get into the habit of listening and taking notice of the most loudest thing. So it's almost like a re-education of not automatically going into the default choice of listening to the human-centered mind. Because the Shen, our intuition, our inner guidance, our inner knowing is always there. It's not something we have to earn, not something we have to learn. We have to unlearn the bad habit of listening to this overly vocal human-centered mind or inner child.
You've explained it perfectly. It's like a child screaming for more sweets.
Yeah.
Would you keep giving it sweets to shut it up? And the answer is, yes, that's exactly what you're doing. You keep on trying to placate it by giving into it, by giving it more sweets. And all it does, it gets louder and louder and louder. Mm-hmm. And here's the rub. Here's the thing that makes me smile. It's like giving a child sweet, 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 sweet. And then when the child's sick, guess who he blames? He blames you, and that's exactly what the human-centered mind does. Mm-hmm. When has the human-centered mind ever said to you, hey, I'm very sorry, I led you down a wrong path there. Oh, you shouldn't have followed me. I was wrong. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. It's never done that to you, has it? Never once. In fact, it does. This is what makes me smile. It leads you down the wrong path. It gets you into more trouble, and then it turns around and says, it's your fault.
Yeah.
And in a way, you know what? It's dead right. Yeah. It is your fault.
Because you are making a choice.
Because you are making a choice, and you are letting it I've said this time and time again. It's like having a big dog and not training the dog and letting the dog pull you around. It's your job to train your mind. Mm-hmm. Remember the basic teaching I say on nearly every video. You control your mind. Your mind does not control you. And that control comes from your Shen, your essence. Mm-hmm. Whatever word you want to call it. You know, I don't like the idea of higher self and all like that. But that inner knowing, that authenticity, that who you really are. You are not this loud, gabbly person. Of course, we've got it. We've all got it.
But you can't get rid of that
can't
either.
Get rid of it, no.
That's, the Shen is the yin to the yang of the human-centered mind and inner child. And all we're trying to do is bring back the balance so that you're not always in the camp of listening to and following without question what the human-centered mind and the inner child is telling you. What we're saying is, why not just press the pause button on that, acknowledge it, of course, investigate the thoughts behind the feelings and the kind of the loud self-talk, but start to tap into and also listen and consider what's coming from within. I mean, the Taoists teach the Shen as almost like the mother to the child, which is the human-centered mind, and that the Shen should be the guiding influence. So that inner knowing, that intuition, that spirit guide, again, whatever label you want to call it, that energy within you. So it doesn't come from outside or external forces. It's the knowledge is within you. But that Shen energy should be the guide. It should be what holds the hand of the child energy of the human-centered mind.
And if you use that analogy, Alex, it also follows then that you don't stop the child from playing and having a nice time.
And you don't ignore it.
And you don't ignore it. And perhaps there's times in your life, I don't know, if you follow football or rugby or want to go and shout and scream as off a mountain. We used to do a retreat where part of the retreat, we used to go to the edge of this cliff and everybody used to scream, just scream loud, because that's a valuable part of you. But it's about appropriateness. It's about not letting one part take over you and be led by it, so you lose your balance.
Yeah. And another thing to say, I think sometimes people think, oh, following my gut instinct is kind of all very soft and fluffy and idealistic. But actually, following Shen guidance may force you to confront difficult, challenging situations. We're not saying that Shen guidance always leads you on an immediately rosy path, but it's about following the authentic path. The authentic path is not necessarily the less challenging path, but it's the authentic path, and it's the path that leads you to Wu Wei.
And it's the path where you'll learn the life lessons.
Yeah.
And so what we're saying is be appropriate. So, for instance, in our Qigong class, there's one of the moves where we drop down, and it's really good to let all that energy come out out of you, because we don't want to hold that energy down, because your yang, your human-centered mind, is not your enemy. It's not out to get you. It's not out to screw up your life. What we're trying to do is to bring the yin and the yang together in a balance, and that's Wu Wei. That's the Wu Wei model that we're trying to give. So this model is changing and flowing and moving, and you're flexible and you're in your flow and you're enjoying that journey. This is the life lesson. And then when, as we sometimes say, when a boulder comes in the way, when somebody drops a boulder in your stream, you don't hold up your hands in horror and go, well, that's me scuppered. I can't do anything now, can I? Yeah. You find a way around the boulder, and that's Wu Wei.
Another thing, I know some people ask us in terms of inner guidance or decisions, what's my authentic choice here, is I think it's a trait of the human-centered mind and the inner child to want to have a definitive, hard and fast, black and white solution or outcome. My understanding, David, is that the Taoist teaching is that often when we are faced with a difficult or challenging life situation or choice we have to make, that the way forward can often be no movement at all, to just sit with it, to just pause, and that actually the rushing to make a decision, rushing to have a definite solution or a way forward, is a construct of the human-centered mind out of balance.
Exactly. And again, I'm going to use my Qigong class as a perfect example. I sometimes say, in Qigong, it's very strange. It's not the more you learn and the more you understand Qigong, the faster you do it. Actually, it's the opposite. The more you understand Qigong, the slower you do it, because you're more appreciative. And as Alex says, you're more in the move. You're more aware of all the nuances, of all of the messages, because the mind, Alex is absolutely right, and she's giving you a great teaching. The mind wants certainty, wants to be sure. And here's the problem. This is why I talk about reality. I am very sorry. None of us know what's going to happen in the future. We have no certainty. We can make good judgments. We'll probably be right some of the time, but we don't know for certain. Now, the human-centered mind and the inner child particularly hates that. Think about, this is why I like the label of the inner child. Think about your child, or think about when you was a child. You'd love to know what was going to happen next week, where we're going to go on holiday, and how long is it going to take. And how many times have you had a child in the car and said, are we there yet? The child wants everything now, delivered now, how it wants it. And this is why I like the label of the inner child, because the mind wants that. Here's the problem. That is not the reality you live in. And so you've got to educate it. Here's the life lesson. You've got to educate it. Actually, we don't know the future. We can make good judgments. We can live authentically. We can be truthful. We can be honest. But that doesn't always mean that everything's going to work out right. And then we've got to be flexible for when that boulder drops into our stream, that we can deal with it authentically, truthfully, honestly, carefully, with love, with care, with respect, all the things we're always talking about, and we can find our way around that boulder.
And the human-centered mind and inner child really wants to rush to get out of the red light feelings at any cost.
Without realising
they create them. So if you're presented with an uncertain situation, you're trying to tap into your intuition, your Shen guidance, all the while your human-centered mind is going, oh no, I need to get out of this situation quick, I need a solution. Don't be tricked into jumping too early. Don't be tricked into having a quick a short-term solution to the problem, which is not long-term the authentic choice.
Absolutely.
Sometimes pausing, sometimes the choice of inaction is the authentic way. Sometimes being patient and allowing time for, I guess in a Taoist term, the cosmic forces or the situation to unfold a little bit more.
Or the energy to change.
Or the energy to shift and change. You know, the Taoists talk a lot about this idea of transition and movement. You know, everything is not fixed, black and white. If you're making a choice, an important choice about a life decision, the dynamic of the situation is always going to be changing while you're working through that process. So there is no harm to sit with your Shen and allow things to transform a little bit more before you can make an informed decision.
And just talking about the transformation and the idea from a Taoist perception of change, I think we've done a video on the I Ching.
Yes.
For those of you who do
Really
not know
good.
about the I Ching, I would absolutely ask you just to have a look at it.
Yeah.
It might not be for you, but just to have a look at it. It's one of the kind of the foundations of the Taoist philosophy, the I Ching, along with the Tao Te Ching. But have a look at the I Ching.
I'll put a link to the video.
Yeah, we've done a video for it. And you know, you don't have to study it hard, but just have a look because it deals with this. The I Ching means the book of change, or a better transformation is the book of transformation. And to understand that everything about us is changing and transforming and moving, and we are part of that flow. We are not the same. You are not the same as when we started this video 10 minutes ago. We're always changing. We're always kind of transforming our views. And that's why I keep saying beliefs are not set in stone. They can be looked at, tweaked, moved, you know, changed or kept. Yeah. That's fine. But you're making the decision to do that.
And one thing to say on the I Ching, I will put the link to the video, but a lot of people misunderstand and if they've heard of the I Ching, they think it's a book of divination. And a lot of people do believe that. But from our teaching, from the Wu Wei wisdom teaching, the I Ching is more like a book of inspiration. It's more like a book that you can use as a useful, practical tool as part of this process of tapping into the conversation with your Shen. So the answers, if you're stuck on something, if you're looking to tap into your intuition, the I Ching does not give you the answers. It provides you with a meditation tool. It provides you with inspiration to tap into your intuition, the answers that are already within you.
Because it can't give you the answer because you already know the answer. You already know the answer to every situation that's unique and correct for you in that time. And so this is why this is it sounds such an easy question, but a great question.
It's a very good question.
Knowing the difference between that inner voice, that real spiritual strength, truth, honesty, integrity, to this squawking voice that wants immediate fix. Fix me. Give me a sweet.
Let's have me out of these red light feelings
just
now.
have another piece of chocolate. Let's have a cream cake. Let's have another drink. That's the human-centered mind, or the inner child, wanting that gratification right now, wanting other people to change right now, wanting the situation right now, not prepared to wait, not prepared to allow things to develop and to unfold in their own time. No, I want it and I want it now. For those of you who've had children, how many times have you heard something like that? Not only do I want it, Mom and Dad, I want it now, right now. And if I don't get it now, that's not fair. See, that's how the mind goes, just like the inner child. That's why I love the label of the inner child.
Great. Thank you, David. Well, I hope that's given you a lot to think about. Certainly, it's a topic I'm particularly interested in. If you have your own techniques and practices for tapping into your intuition, your Shen voice, please let us know.
If you want to know more about the I Ching,
we'll
just
put the link
below,
in. And any questions or comments on this topic, please also comment. And as always, we'll be happy to answer them for you.